Hello, my name is Kevin Malover. I'm a principal consultant for CIO services. I've been fortunate to have been the Chief Information or Technology Officer for 5 companies, each in a different industry, stage of maturity, and competitive environment. Today as a consultant, I draw on these experiences to help companies like yours build a solid and strategic foundation for technology using a framework you can use as I have to disrupt and defend markets, innovate for competitive advantage, and stabilize and grow your IT. Today I'd like to offer solutions for freight carriers, brokers, and third-party logistics providers to the current challenges in the transportation and logistics industry. There are so many disruptive forces at play that require specific responses. These forces are not unlike those we saw in travel when Orbitz, Travelocity, and Expedia disintermediated travel agents. I was the 3rd employee and founding CIO at Orbitz, so I had a front row seat as we made plans that disrupted the travel industry. We saw similar forces when Uber and Lyft turned the taxi industry upside down. I had another front row seat, this time as the CIO for a global transit company called Transdev. I was on the receiving side of this disruption. It wasn't nearly as much fun as being on the giving side, but experiencing it from both sides has been invaluable. We saw similar disruptive forces when digital photography dramatically forced Eastman Kodak into bankruptcy. And there are many, many other examples. You don't have to look far to see examples of new players and new technology disrupting stable industries. In disruptive markets like these, transportation companies have a choice of sitting on the sidelines, conducting business as usual, or embracing the disruption and thriving at the other end. There are at least 5 similarities between the freight industry and those disrupted industries I showed. First, we are talking about very large industries with scale and reach. The freight market is $726 billion, and 73% of that is trucking. It's huge. The second dynamic is fragmentation. Freight is a very fragmented industry. There are 20,000 shippers that spend more than $10 million on freight each year. There are 1,600 freight brokers with revenue of $10 million or more, and there are 4,500 trucking companies with over $20 million in annual revenue. Third, freight and logistics are underserved by technology. The industry has been slow to adopt technology, and vendors have been slow to develop good software products. Great software technology for carriers, brokers, and shippers is hard to find. In general, the software underperforms compared to other industries. The fourth dynamic is the dramatic increase in investment. Investors are entering the industry with roll-up strategies to consolidate freight companies, to start up new data-driven information services, and to even launch a new freight futures market so that shippers, carriers, and brokers can smooth out their costs using hedging strategies. The fifth dynamic is the arrival of new players. Companies with significant financial backing like Uber and Amazon are entering the space. They have massive financial backing that allows them to lose money on freight while they pursue tangential agendas like Amazon's effort to lock up carrier capacity to accommodate their peak holiday demands. The new entrants also have significant expertise that could change the industry quickly. Digitally keeping track of the location, conditions, and timing of freight loads is not ubiquitous in the industry yet, but Amazon is a world leader in knowing where things are located. In freight, it's called telematics. Call it telematics, or more commonly, the Internet of Things. Trucks are just things, and Amazon will raise the bar on knowing where trucks are, how long they've been there, how long it will take them to get somewhere else, who's driving, for how long, and what the real-time temperature is of the cargo. Amazon will make it look easy and transparent. We know it's not easy, but existing carriers and brokers will need to be able to keep up with Amazon in this area. As trucks become more connected, the security risks increase, so freight companies will need to become much more vigilant and expert at digital security protection. The freight industry had plenty of challenges even before these 5 dynamics surfaced. Shippers are demanding more transparency. Regulations were enacted to electronically monitor and limit driver hours. Fuel prices fluctuate. There is driver churn and there are driver shortages. There is an uncertain tariff climate and unpredictable weather. In markets under disruption, the incumbents typically focus on efficiency and profit. They need to defend their markets and protect their businesses. Disruptors typically focus on growth with little regard for profit. It's a land grab for customers using new technology and new business models that are different than the old models. Disruptors focus on long-term strategy rather than short-term tactics. The solution for incumbents is to create long-term value with an approach that fights the tendency to overly focus on efficiency and profits at the expense of growth and differentiation. It takes all four to thrive and create value in a market like this. You can accomplish this by building balanced roadmaps with specific initiatives in each of the four value creation areas. To illustrate this, I'll lead you through a case study based on experiences at several freight companies. Our example uses a typical mid-market trucking fleet and broker business. We assessed their technology and operations and built roadmaps consistent with their strategic objectives. Each company's roadmap is different, depending on whether your company is preparing for long-term growth, a short-term application need, or a medium-term desire to increase your valuation for an upcoming acquisition. In our case study, there was some uncertainty at the freight company regarding which of the three strategies to pursue. They wanted more information to decide. For each alternative, they wanted to know what the effort and cost would be, so we got to work on that. Although there was some uncertainty about the overriding objective, they had some very specific questions in areas that they wanted us to prosecute. They were not satisfied with the way their TMS, Transportation Management System, was performing. They had experienced major performance and security issues over the past year. New features they implemented were not working as advertised. Integrations with other services were based on old school technology and they were slow. Their vendor was not being responsive. That's a lot. So it makes sense that a review of TMS alternatives would be a high priority for them. They wanted better dashboards and reports. They wanted to explore machine learning, and they wanted stronger pricing strategies based on historical data. They wanted to make sure they were getting their money's worth from their vendors. They wanted outside benchmarks so they could evaluate and rate their vendors. Finally, they wanted an overall review of their technology by outside experts. They had a very competent IT team, but they knew that outside experts from other companies and industries could bring valuable experience and viewpoints to their plans. To address their priorities, we performed a three-step process. There is nothing more boring than process, so I'll keep this part brief by showing just a snapshot of how we arrived at answers and solutions for this company. The first step was to assess the current state of their technology. We reviewed all of the areas shown here, from security to architecture to budgets to people and processes. It's the same review that thorough investors perform before purchasing or investing in a company. Trust me, you are much better off performing this type of review before investors are knocking at your door. We compared the results to the best practices in each area to arrive at recommendations and solutions. While that assessment was going on, we launched the envisioning step, where we interviewed the leadership and various teams to understand what they wanted the future state of technology to look like at the company. How did they want technology to support or drive the business? Finally, we built roadmaps and plans. We mapped the recommendations back to the four value creation categories I showed before. This helped us set priorities. The first recommendation area was naturally efficiency. Good technology outcomes rely on best practices in managing technology. No matter how good your team is, there is always room for improvement, especially as companies grow. So we had a number of recommendations in this area, especially around security and disaster recovery. In our case study, the company had an underperforming transportation management system, but the TMS alternatives for mid-market firms like this are limited. There just are not a lot of good vendor options for them. With limited TMS choices and choices that were not state-of-the-art, it became apparent that building workflows and automation around the TMS would be a better choice than changing TMSs. This would be true at least until some better alternatives emerged, or until the company grew to a size that made custom development more practical. Another significant finding was in the area of data management. This company's data was not organized well enough to use to make informed decisions about profit margins, sales productivity, or hedging strategies on the new futures market. Increasing bottom-line profitability and top-line sales growth was difficult without good data, so we put in place a data hygiene program to clean up the data to allow for strategic decision-making that was not possible before. Cleaning up the data allowed the company to build meaningful business intelligence dashboards. They now have reliable ways to visualize and analyze their data for better decision-making. They could now understand exactly which customers, which lanes, and which markets were most profitable, so they could focus on them. Collecting additional data allowed them to better understand their opportunity wins and opportunity losses. They could now win more business by using more intelligent pricing strategies. This led to increased profits. This company had significant growth aspirations, but they had no CRM application in place, no consistent sales methodology to set objectives and measure effectiveness, and no product and marketing strategy in place to give the sales team something to talk with customers about. We corrected that. You can see that the IT assessment and road mapping starts with technology, but it ultimately addresses much, much more. The fourth area, differentiation, may be the most important in a market that is being disrupted by new technology and aggressive new players. In a highly competitive market, efficiency is important, but being super efficient in a race to the bottom for competitive pricing is not going to lead to long-term success. But differentiation is. We identified innovative new data-driven business models and products that extended the company's reach beyond their normal fleet and broker business. As technology competition and new entrants put pressure on the traditional freight business, this company will be prepared with alternative and complementary products and revenue sources that extend their reach into their customers' supply chains. You might ask, what new revenue models could there be in trucking? One example is a completely new portal strategy showing mashups of customer data with industry data. Customer portals with insights like this make your relationship with existing customers stickier and easier to defend. They also give sales and marketing teams something new to talk about with prospects. In our case study, there was also an underlying foundational effort that focused on data hygiene and data analytics. This effort was critical to executing the rest of the roadmap. Without good data, good decisions would not have been possible. We developed plans around 50 or 60 recommendations and prioritized them to ensure there was a good balance of initiatives in each of the value creation categories. I'd like to pause here for discussion. I know that every company is unique, so I'm wondering how your situation compares with our case study. Some companies are more interested in automation and pricing engines, others in business intelligence and dashboards, and others need an overall IT health checkup. Is your situation anything like this? How would you rate your company in these areas? What are your biggest technology concerns? CIO Services offers an assessment and roadmap service to develop the strategic initiatives and plans needed to thrive in competitive markets. We also offer a business intelligence and dashboard service to clean up, transform, and visualize your data so you can more accurately measure your efforts and make better strategic decisions about the future. These two services can address many of the challenges facing transportation and logistics companies in this changing market. This graphic shows an overview of the assessment and roadmap service that I've performed for companies in numerous industries, including freight, and we can modify it to meet your business needs. The engagement takes 10 weeks for data gathering, interviews, and research. The deliverables include roadmaps, scorecards, dashboards, and tools that you can continue to use while executing your specific projects. I was on the giving side of the disruption in the travel industry at Orbitz, and I was on the receiving side of the disruption of the taxi industry at Transdev. These experiences helped me develop successful strategies and roadmaps for companies like yours. The solutions are found in the assessment and business intelligence services that I can customize to your specific needs. Thank you for your time today. Please reach out using the contact information shown here so we can continue the dialogue around these issues to find ways to ensure your company thrives in this disruptive market.